Rome's greatest power was not its legions, it was the art that shaped its politics, hidden wealth, and cultural dominance. As we enter the final chapter, we return to the heart of the empire, where marble whispers the truth of Rome's secret economy. The sun rises over the forum, catching the edges of statues that have stood through revolutions, fires, and their shadows fall long across the stones, reminding us that Roman art was never silent. It was designed to speak. Everything in Rome carried meaning, from the tilt of a statue's head to the placement of a mosaic beneath a dining couch. Art communicated power more effectively than any speech in the Senate, and Rome's elite understood this language better than anyone. They used it to command loyalty, create alliances, and secure fortunes that have rarely been revealed in history books. In private libraries, where scrolls stacked to the ceiling, senators hosted intellectual banquets surrounded by rare Greek bronzes. These gatherings were not for entertainment, they were negotiations disguised as culture. A senator who quoted Homer beside a priceless statue signaled both refinement and wealth. This combination made him irresistible as a political ally. Rome's wealthiest families competed intensely to gather the most prestigious art collections. They sent agents across the Mediterranean, searching for lost masterpieces buried in collapsed temples or abandoned sanctuaries. These agents were part archaeologists, part smuggler, and part diplomat. Their work created a shadow network of art trafficking that enriched Rome's upper class. Some merchants grew so powerful through art deals that emperors watched them with caution. A single shipment of marble from Paros could change the balance of power inside the Senate. As the empire expanded, the flow of art into Rome became a torrent. Ships arrived daily with crates of mosaics, carved ivory, gemstones, and colossal statues. Every object had a story, often born in a conquered city, captured by legionaries, and sold quietly in auctions deep beneath Roman baths. These auctions were exclusive spaces where senators and equestrians bid secretly on items too politically sensitive for public sale. Here, a single mosaic floor could fetch the price of a villa. A rare Corinthian bronze could purchase an entire estate, and a lifelike marble portrait could make a man's reputation overnight. Wealth in Rome was not only measured in gold, it was measured in beauty. But beauty in Rome had a practical purpose. Families invested in art because it appreciated rapidly in value. A statue purchased for a modest sum in a war-damaged province could be worth 10 times more once displayed in a Roman atrium. This economic system turned aristocrats into art investors long before the concept existed. Rome's art market was so advanced that it influenced international trade routes. Merchants in Syria, Egypt, and Greece crafted objects specifically tailored to Roman tastes. Workshops in Alexandria designed mosaics for Roman villas before the villas were even constructed. The demand was constant, and the wealth that flowed into Rome from art surpassed the revenue of some smaller provinces. Even emperors relied on art to maintain authority. When Hadrian traveled the empire, he commissioned statues of himself in Greek style, blending Roman might with Hellenistic elegance. These statues were sent ahead to cities before his arrival, acting as ambassadors of imperial prestige. People saw the image, admired the idealized beauty, and awaited the emperor with loyalty. Art prepared the way for political unity, and in Rome, unity was priceless. But there was also a darker side to this artistic wealth. Some pieces were stolen from sacred temples, inciting anger across the provinces. Others were taken from tombs, violating ancient beliefs and fueling resentment. Yet Rome justified these actions by claiming it preserved the world's beauty. To Romans, art belonged to civilization, and Rome saw itself as civilization's guardian. This belief shaped museums long before museums existed. Wealthy patrons opened portions of their villas to display their collections. Invitations to view these galleries were social privileges reserved for trusted friends or political allies. Inside these rooms, marble gleamed in the glow of oil lamps. Frescoes covered the walls like windows into mythological worlds. Mosaics glittered like trapped starlight beneath visitors' sandals. The experience was designed to overwhelm and inspire. Anyone who walked through such galleries understood the power of the owner. These private collections became the silent battleground of social rivalry. Senators competed not with words, but with sculptures. Generals competed with foreign treasures taken during campaigns. Governors competed with exotic artworks. gathered from distant provinces. This competition pushed artistic innovation forward. Roman craftsmen, trying to keep up with elite tastes, developed new techniques. Colored glass, once rare, became a symbol of luxury. Marble carving reached levels of precision that modern tools struggled to imitate. Fresco styles evolved into complex illusions that made walls appear to open into imaginary landscapes. Art in Rome was not static. It was a living engine that produced wealth, culture, and political identity. Even public monuments were designed with financial strategy in mind. The Arch of Titus immortalized victory while increasing the value of the surrounding district. Trajan's column preserved military glory while attracting craftsmen, merchants, and scholars to the Forum. The Pantheon, with its vast concrete dome, became a symbol of imperial stability that boosted trade in nearby markets. These monuments were investments that strengthened the city's economy. And yet, despite all this grandeur, the true wealth of Rome lay beneath the surface. Underground vaults stored gold-inlaid furniture, carved amber, jeweled helmets, and rare menus. Some vaults were so secret that only a handful of slaves knew their entrances. These slaves were trained to guard not only the treasures, but the knowledge of their existence. A single hidden chamber could contain the worth of a modern museum, and every powerful family in Rome maintained such collections. Art became the currency of inheritance, passed from father to son, from generation to generation. Young heirs learned early that statues were political tools, mosaics were investments, and frescoes were markers of identity. They were raised to understand that Rome's glory rested on marble shoulders, and so, even as the empire faced corruption, invasions, and internal conflict, its artistic wealth remained unbroken. When economic crises struck, families sold artwork to foreign buyers, keeping their estates intact. When political rivals rose, they used art to gather allies. When emperors changed, art reinforced legitimacy by rewriting their image in stone. The empire was a canvas painted with power, and though time has eroded its walls, much of this artistic wealth still survives. Marble busts continue to watch us with their calm, knowing faces. Mosaics still shimmer beneath museum lights, as if alive. Frescoes still breathe ancient colors onto modern walls. Rome may have fallen, but its art never did. Because art was the true empire, one that outlasted armies, emperors, and centuries. And in the end, it was this empire of beauty that preserved Rome's memory long after its political power faded. The secret wealth of Rome, carved and painted across millennia, remains the most enduring triumph in human history. Rome grew rich not only from taxes and conquests, but from an invisible marketplace hidden beneath its marble streets. This marketplace traded in beauty, prestige, and power, the commodities that shaped the empire's destiny. The chapter opens at dawn, with vendors in the forums sweeping dust from mosaic tiles before the crowds arrive. But beneath this ordinary bustle existed another world, reserved only for Rome's elite. In this world, art was not decoration, it was currency, and those who controlled it controlled Rome itself. Senators often began their careers by purchasing modest Greek statues to display in their atriums. These early investments were carefully chosen for meaning, not appearance. A statue of Athena suggested intelligence and strategy. A statue of Apollo suggested refinement and eloquence. Visitors entering the home read these symbols instantly. Art became a silent conversation between the hosts and society. But as politicians rose in rank, their taste and ambition expanded. They sought rare pieces, legendary pieces, works created by master sculptors known across the Mediterranean. These could not be purchased in public markets. They arrived through secret channels run by merchants, ship captains, and provincial governors. Some of these channels were legal. Money? Where? Not. A carved marble relief from Asia Minor might be shipped under a false name. A bronze statue from Greece might travel hidden among crates of olive oil. A mosaic stolen from a temple floor could be smuggled in fragments and reassembled in a Roman villa. Every object had a story, and every story carried profit. The Roman elite did not ask questions, they asked prices. And prices in this invisible market were astonishing. A single gem-inlaid bowl from Alexandria could fund an entire year of political campaigning. A rare bronze discovered near Athens could be traded for favors that shaped senatorial votes. Art circulated through Rome like lifeblood, feeding ambitions and igniting rivalries. Generals returning from campaigns brought more than captives and gold. They brought masterpieces seized from conquered cities. These treasures were displayed during triumphs, dazzling crowds and inspiring awe. But after the parade ended, the art vanished into private galleries. There, behind locked doors, senators studied each piece not as beauty, but as strategy. Owning a sculpture by a legendary Greek artist elevated a man's social rank instantly. It signaled that he had influence abroad, connections with wealthy allies, and access to rare trade routes. Art became a resume written in marble. And in Rome, where reputation meant survival, this resume was priceless. Provincial governors also participated in the art trade. They collected tributes, sometimes forcibly from local communities. These tributes might include mosaics, carved tablets, bronze figurines, or temple decorations. Governors shipped these treasures to their own estates, enriching themselves while impoverishing provinces. Rome pretended not to notice, as long as the governors kept the provinces quiet. Meanwhile, artisans across the empire worked tirelessly to meet Roman demand. Workshops in Pergamon created life-size sculptures with realism unmatched anywhere else. Workshops in Antioch specialized in mosaics, whose colors glowed like living fire. Egyptian craftsmen carved ivory and alabaster with delicate precision. These workshops thrived because Rome had turned luxury into necessity. A villa without proper mosaics was considered unfinished. A household without frescoes was considered and a senator without a gallery was considered weak. Strength in Rome was measured by what you displayed, but displaying too much could be dangerous. Jealous rivals whispered accusations of greed, corruption, or dislike. So elite families learned to hide their most valuable pieces underground. Beneath many villas lay secret rooms reinforced with stone, air-cooled by underground channels. These chambers protected art from humidity, theft, or imperial seizure. Only trusted slaves knew the entrances to these vaults. Inside them, treasures rested in perfect darkness. Statues draped in cloth, mosaics rolled like carpets, scrolls wrapped in waxed leather. These hidden collections represented generational wealth. Fathers passed them to sons, who expanded them with new acquisitions from distant provinces. Over generations, entire families became synonymous with certain artistic styles. One family might be known for collecting bronze athletes, another for marble gods with serene expressions, another for dazzling mosaic floors depicting epic myths. These artistic identities became family signatures, inseparable from political power. Alliances were forged not in taverns, but in galleries. A senator might admire a rare statue in a rivalous home and propose an alliance to strengthen ties. The owner might agree or refuse, depending on political strategy. Even marriages were negotiated through art. A father offering his daughter in marriage might present a mosaic or statue as part of her dowry. This artwork then linked the two families forever. Thus art became part of Rome's social architecture. It shaped who rose, who fell, and who remained influential for generations. But the invisible market grew more complex as the empire expanded. New provinces introduced new styles: Persian metalwork, Iberian silver, Egyptian glass. Rome absorbed these styles quickly, adapting them into its own aesthetic language. This cultural fusion enriched Rome's artistic identity, yet it also fueled competition and greed. Some aristocrats sent agents into battlefields to strip art from abandoned cities before soldiers arrived. These agents were the earliest art dealers, operating in dangerous regions to secure rare treasures. Governors often collaborated with them, taking a percentage of the profit. Emperors knew these activities occurred but tolerated them to maintain political support. Art became the empire's unofficial currency, liquid, portable, and prestigious. A single mosaic could be converted into political influence anywhere in the empire. A statue could be exchanged for protection, favors, or military loyalty. Art allowed Rome's elite to build networks impossible to create with gold alone. Gold could be taxed or confiscated, but art, once acquired, could simply disappear. This gave families security that no treasury could match, and it gave Rome a cultural richness unmatched in the ancient world. The invisible art market shaped the empire as deeply as any law or army. It sculpted reputations, opened doors, and built dynasties. Yet it remained a secret, hidden behind frescoed walls and marble columns. And through that secret, Rome transformed art from beauty into empire. By the height of Rome's empire, art had become a language of authority, understood by every citizen and senator alike. Wealthy families realized that statues, frescoes, and mosaics could speak more persuasively than speeches or decrees. Art allowed them to shape public perception without confrontation. The chapter begins in a sunlit atrium, where a marble statue of Venus gazes upon visitors with eternal grace. This statue was more than decoration. It was a symbol of the family's taste, wealth, and influence. Patrons commissioned artists not merely for beauty but to assert dominance in social hierarchies. A sculptor's skill reflected directly on the patron who hired him. The finest works required years of apprenticeship, rare materials, and precise execution. Greek masters were highly sought after, their names carrying enormous prestige. Wealthy Romans competed to hire these masters, often offering salaries higher than provincial governors earned. Art became a visible measure of political power. In the Forum, statues of emperors and generals reminded citizens of victories and divine favor. The public saw triumphs, but the elite understood profit and strategy. Commissions often served multiple purposes: aesthetic, economic, and political. Frescoes could decorate a villa while signaling allegiance to an emperor. Statues could honor a god while reminding citizens of a family's contribution to Rome. These gestures were carefully calculated to maintain influence and avoid controversy. Patrons often sponsored temples, which doubled as public showcases and private investments. Religious devotion and financial acumen intertwined seamlessly. By funding a temple, a senator could guarantee public favor while increasing the value of nearby property. Art in Rome operated as currency, social capital, and propaganda simultaneously. But patronage was not limited to the city. Provinces played a crucial role. Governors commissioned local artists to create works appealing to Roman tastes. This ensured loyalty, encouraged trade, and reinforced the empire's cultural dominance. Artists adapted their style to suit Roman patrons, blending local motifs with classical ideals. In Gaul, mosaics depicted Roman gods alongside Celtic symbols. In Egypt, statues combined Hellenistic elegance with Pharaonic iconography. This fusion created a shared visual language that unified the empire. Patrons understood that influence traveled along aesthetic lines. Hosting gatherings in art-filled villas became an essential part of political life. Guests were evaluated not only by their words, but by their reactions to displayed art. Compliments, admiration, and subtle envy all measured social alignment. Art guided conversations, relationships, and alliances with silent authority. Families also collected portable artworks, bronze figurines, painted panels, and small sculptures. These items traveled easily, allowing patrons to display taste in multiple locations. Wealthy Romans carried influence wherever they went, supported by objects of prestige. Some of the most coveted pieces were imported from Greece and Asia Minor. These works carried historical weight, linking the patron to the glories of the past. By possessing them, families claimed indirect authority over history itself. Public art reinforced these claims. Arches, columns, and statues depicted victories, dynasties, and divine favor. A general returning from conquest could dedicate a monument that simultaneously glorified Rome and his own family. Citizens were impressed, competitors wary, and allies reassured. Art mediated power in ways force alone could not achieve. Yet, not all patronage was virtuous. Competition sometimes led to bribery, theft, and coercion in the art market. Families manipulated workshops, forcing craftsmen to create idealized likenesses of living or deceased relatives. Plagiarism of famous styles was common, though patrons rarely acknowledged it. Even emperors engaged in this practice to reinforce legitimacy. Augustus commissioned works that evoked past kings, aligning himself with mythic authority. Nero, infamous for extravagance, flooded Rome with portraits and sculptures to assert his presence. Art became both weapon and shield, supporting dynasties while intimidating rivals. In private homes, frescoes depicted mythological triumphs, subtly mirroring contemporary politics. Dining rooms transformed into stages where patron status was continually performed. Floors covered in mosaics narrated stories, teaching values and showcasing education. Visitors absorbed lessons silently while admiring craftsmanship. The power of suggestion through imagery was unmatched. Workshops flourished under high demand. Master artisans trained apprentices, ensuring techniques were preserved and improved. Studios specialized in sculpture, mosaic, fresco, and metalwork. Each workshop competed for the patronage of the elite, creating innovation through rivalry. Artists became part of a social network, their success tied to the reputation of those they served. Roman patronage system created a symbiotic relationship. Wealth enabled art, and art reinforced wealth. The invisible network of collectors, workshops, and merchants sustained the empire's cultural economy. Trade routes expanded to accommodate demand for rare marbles, pigments, and exotic metals. Shipping statues across the Mediterranean required planning, security, and diplomatic clearance. Each transported piece represented a risk and a potential reward. Markets in Rome were bustling, yet the most valuable works never entered public sale. Auctions were conducted privately, ensuring that only trusted individuals bid. Secrecy protected wealth, reputations, and political strategies. Generations of families curated private galleries to consolidate influence. Children inherited not only objects but networks, alliances, and prestige. Art became an heirloom of power, passing social capital alongside material value. Families nurtured relationships with artists, ensuring continued production of unique works. These connections often outlived political shifts, securing influence across decades. Patronage extended to intellectuals as well. Poets, historians, and philosophers were employed to document collections and glorify patrons. Their writings amplified prestige and immortalized families in Rome's cultural memory. By combining literature and art, patrons crafted narratives of authority. Public and private collections together created a visual ecosystem of power. The most influential families controlled both spheres, maximizing social leverage. Art became a stabilizing force, defining norms of taste, decorum, and morality. Even as empires rose and fell, the legacy of patronage persisted. Cities remembered patrons through inscriptions, dedications, and enduring monuments. Their names became inseparable from the artworks they commissioned. Through art, they achieved a form of immortality unavailable to ordinary citizens. The patronage system also trained the next generation in the subtle arts of influence. Young nobles learned that power was displayed, negotiated, and preserved through aesthetic mastery. In Rome, marble and mosaic were more than objects. They were instruments of governance, and by understanding them, the empire maintained authority, wealth, and culture across centuries. Rome's expansion was as much cultural as it was military. Every conquered city offered treasures that could be transformed into symbols of power. Generals returned not only with captives and gold, but with mosaics, statues, and frescoes. These pieces were paraded during triumphs to awe the citizenry and impress allies. But once the crowds dispersed, the art entered private collections, fueling influence quietly. Art became a secret engine of social control. Elite families knew that displaying rare objects commanded attention and loyalty. The selection of a piece, its placement, and the manner in which it was presented all mattered. Even the smallest bronze figurine could signal sophistication and far-reaching connections. Patrons often commissioned Greek artists to ensure authenticity and prestige. These craftsmen traveled to Rome, carrying knowledge of techniques refined over centuries. Marble carving, bronze casting, and fresco painting reached unprecedented levels of refinement. Workshops in Athens, Pergamon, and Alexandria became suppliers to Rome's elite. Each piece arrived with a story that enhanced its value. Some came from temples, others from private estates, and a few from distant shrines. Every artifact symbolized conquest, diplomacy, or trade mastery. Families understood that owning these items meant controlling narratives of power. In villas, mosaics depicted gods, myths, and legendary heroes mirroring patrons' political ambitions. Frescoes illustrated virtues such as courage, wisdom, and piety. Visitors absorbed these messages unconsciously, shaping social hierarchies without force. Public monuments amplified this effect. Triumphal arches immortalized victories while enhancing nearby districts economically. Columns, like Trajan's, told entire campaigns in stone relief. Citizens interpreted these stories as Rome's glory, but elites understood personal gain. Governors and senators leveraged art to negotiate alliances, marriages, and business deals. Private galleries hosted the most strategic discussions, hidden from public scrutiny. Political meetings in art-filled atriums were as much about influence as policy. A guest's reaction to a sculpture could indicate loyalty or hidden dissent. Some families maintained multiple villas to display collections across regions. Traveling with artworks ensured social presence in multiple cities simultaneously. Wealthy Romans invested heavily in portable art, small bronzes, painted panels, and ivory carvings. These objects functioned as gifts, bribes, or status markers. Each gift reinforced bonds, creating networks that stretched across the empire. Provinces played an essential role in this system. Local artisans adapted their creations to Roman tastes while retaining regional motifs. In Gaul, mosaics incorporated Celtic designs alongside Roman gods. Egyptian sculptors combined pharaonic symbols with Greco-Roman forms. This blend created a shared cultural vocabulary, uniting distant lands under Roman influence. Patrons carefully curated these works to reflect both wealth and knowledge. A villa without mosaics or frescoes was considered incomplete. A senator without Greek sculptures lacked refinement. Artistic competence became synonymous with political aptitude. Workshops thrived under constant demand, refining techniques to satisfy elite expectations. Master craftsmen trained apprentices, ensuring continuity and innovation. Art studios competed for high-profile commissions, pushing creative boundaries. Families leveraged these innovations to distinguish themselves in society. Patronage extended to intellectuals who documented collections and praised commissions. Poets, historians, and philosophers were employed to immortalize patrons' influence. Public and private art together created a visible ecosystem of authority. Competition between families fueled artistic evolution, ensuring that Rome remained culturally dynamic. Even emperors relied on art to legitimize their rule. Augustus commissioned statues referencing past kings, aligning himself with legendary authority. Nero displayed portraits and monumental works to assert presence and power. Art operated as a weapon and shield, elevating families and intimidating rivals. Frescoes often depicted mythological triumphs that mirrored contemporary politics. Dining rooms became stages for performing wealth and sophistication. Mosaics narrated stories beneath feet, conveying virtues and lessons subtly. Visitors absorbed these messages while admiring craftsmanship. The circulation of art created a network of influence, linking families across the empire. Provincial governors facilitated this trade, collecting tributes and shipping treasures to Rome. Exotic materials, marble, rare pigments, precious metals were transported along secured routes. Each piece represented wealth, status, and opportunity. Auctions were conducted privately, limiting access to trusted buyers. This ensured secrecy, security, and strategic advantage. Families curated private galleries to consolidate influence over generations. Heirs inherited not only objects but alliances, reputation, and social capital. Patronage fostered loyalty between artists and patrons, ensuring ongoing production. Artists' fortunes were tied to the success of their commissions. Workshops became hubs of innovation, responding to the tastes of Rome's elite. Art transcended utility, functioning as both symbol and currency. Wealth, power, and prestige flowed along visual channels, shaping the empire. Public displays reinforced these dynamics, while private collections amplified influence discreetly. Patrons trained children in aesthetic discernment, teaching them the subtle arts of persuasion. Understanding art became synonymous with understanding society. Statues, mosaics, and frescoes guided political decisions and social interactions. Each acquisition, placement, or gift was calculated for maximum advantage. Art reinforced identity, preserved legacy, and secured loyalty across generations. Even as empires declined, families maintained these cultural networks. They sold, gifted, or loaned artworks to sustain wealth and influence. Art was liquid, portable, and enduring a safeguard against political or economic collapse. Patrons shaped public perception through their collections, manipulating narratives subtly yet effectively. Galleries became arenas of silent negotiation, where influence could be measured by taste alone. Generations learned that mastery of art equaled mastery of social and political life. Art operated in tandem with law, army, and trade to sustain Rome's supremacy. Its influence was invisible to the common citizen, yet omnipresent in decision-making corridors. Even in distant provinces, Roman art set cultural standards that guided behavior and loyalty. Mosaics, statues, and frescoes became tools for empire building and governance. The aesthetic landscape of Rome was both a reflection and driver of power. Families who mastered patronage controlled more than wealth, they controlled society. In this way, art became Rome's silent, enduring, and most strategic weapon. Beyond the Forum, Rome's true treasures lay hidden in the villas of the elite. These estates were more than homestay, were curated repositories of art and power. Marble floors, frescoed walls, and gilded ceilings conveyed wealth silently but decisively. The arrangement of a villa followed a careful logic, designed to impress visitors and assert authority. Atriums displayed the finest statues, often imported from Greece or Asia Minor. Courtyards contained fountains surrounded by bronze or marble sculptures. Dining rooms were adorned with mosaics, depicting mythological narratives that reflected the patron's virtues. Every piece told a story, signaling education, refinement, and social standing. Patrons used these villas as venues for negotiation, alliance building, and influence. The location of a sculpture or fresco was deliberate, controlling the flow of attention. Guests moved through spaces carefully curated to highlight power and taste. Wealthy families competed for dominance through artistic splendor. Collections expanded with every conquest, diplomatic gift, or trade acquisition. Some villas contained entire rooms dedicated solely to Greek bronzes. Others showcased mosaics depicting Rome's victories over distant provinces. Art became a visual ledger of family achievements and ambitions. The most prized pieces were often stored in hidden chambers, away from public view. These secret vaults preserved treasures against theft, fire, and political upheaval. Only trusted slaves knew their locations, serving as guardians of generational wealth. Art functioned as both asset and legacy. Children were raised to understand its significance from an early age. They learned that acquiring a rare statue was as vital as political maneuvering. Heirs inherited both the objects and the networks that enabled their family's influence. Patronage extended beyond visual art to luxury items like jewelry, silverware, and rare textiles. Each acquisition enhanced social capital and reinforced political alliances. Sculptures often depicted gods or heroes, imbuing patrons with symbolic virtues. Frescoes illustrated moral lessons or mythological triumphs that reflected contemporary politics. Mosaic floors were designed to impress guests and signal cultural sophistication. Even garden layouts followed aesthetic principles, integrating statues, fountains, and greenery. Villas functioned as microcosms of the empire, representing Rome's power and taste in miniature. Provincial governors contributed to this system by sending exotic artworks to Rome. Egyptian alabaster, Syrian bronzes, and Greek marbles enriched private collections. These acquisitions demonstrated far-reaching influence and command over trade routes. Art facilitated alliances between families, cities, and regions. Gifting a sculptural mosaic could cement loyalty or smooth political tensions. Families employed artists strategically, commissioning works to project authority. Workshops competed to produce masterpieces, refining techniques under elite supervision. Innovations in color, texture, and composition reflected patrons' ambitions. Artists were valued not only for skill, but for the ability to convey the patron's narrative. Art also served as collateral in economic dealings, easily converted into wealth or favor. Some families loaned prized works to allies, strengthening bonds without depleting assets. Artifacts from distant lands demonstrated sophistication, curiosity, and access. Rome's elite cultivated collections that reflected both intellect and conquest. The interplay between public monuments and private villas reinforced social hierarchies. Monuments projected power outward. Villas projected power inward. Wealthy Romans controlled perception by combining both strategies. The circulation of art created networks of influence that extended across the empire. Traders, agents, and messengers facilitated the movement of treasures with remarkable efficiency. Each object carried multiple values: aesthetic, political, economic, and symbolic. Families monitored the provenance of their acquisitions, ensuring authenticity and prestige. Fraud and imitation were constant threats in the art market. Patrons relied on trusted intermediaries to navigate these challenges. Villas became hubs for cultural exchange, negotiation, and strategic alliances. Entering a villa was akin to entering a visual court of power. Guests interpreted every detail, learning the family's ambitions and priorities. Art guided social interactions subtly but effectively. Frescoes narrated ideals. Sculptures signaled virtue. Mosaics commanded attention. Families who mastered these codes secured enduring influence. Inheritance extended beyond property to reputation, taste, and political leverage. Children, trained in aesthetic literacy, understood early that art shaped social reality. Workshops thrived under demand for new techniques and innovative designs. Artistic evolution paralleled political and economic developments. Patronage ensured the preservation and advancement of cultural sophistication. Masters passed knowledge to apprentices, creating enduring artistic lineages. Villas also contained archives of correspondence, contracts, and inventories. These documents tracked acquisitions, loans, and commissions, safeguarding wealth. Some estates functioned as de facto museums, blending private collection with educational purpose. Patrons employed historians and poets to immortalize their collections and deeds. Literature amplified visual art, reinforcing reputation and authority. Public recognition and private accumulation created a synergistic effect. Art allowed families to navigate complex political landscapes without overt confrontation. Objects served as silent negotiators, bridging alliances and asserting dominance. Trade routes adapted to meet the insatiable demand for rare and exotic materials. Shipments of marble, bronze, and pigment were carefully documented and insured. Each transport reinforced Rome's control over regional economies and artisanal production. Villas exemplified the fusion of wealth, culture, and strategic foresight. Families understood that visibility and discretion were equally important. Secret rooms preserved masterpieces for selective display and negotiation. Public-facing galleries reinforced social authority, while private chambers safeguarded true wealth. The careful orchestration of these spaces reflected intelligence and foresight. Art became the currency of influence, transcending gold and land. Patrons who mastered its use controlled networks of loyalty, commerce, and reputation. Even as Rome faced internal strife, the villas preserved continuity and cultural memory. Generational collections provided stability amidst political upheaval. Art's enduring presence ensured families' prominence long after their names faded from memory. Each acquisition, display, and strategic placement was a lesson in power and legacy. Villas symbolized Rome's dual mastery of beauty and authority. In these estates, wealth was measured not merely by property, but by the sophistication of taste. Art turned homes into instruments of governance, social control, and historical preservation. And through this hidden wealth, Rome's elite sustained influence that would echo across centuries. Villas and galleries were not mere homes. They were miniature empires. Each room, sculpture, and fresco represented power, wealth, and influence. Patrons curated collections to narrate family history and assert authority. Art became a medium through which social hierarchies were displayed and negotiated. The atrium often contained statues of ancestors, reinforcing lineage and prestige. Bronze busts captured likenesses with startling realism, immortalizing rulers and patrons alike. Marble reliefs depicted mythological narratives, aligned with family virtues. Frescoes and mosaics illustrated heroism, divine favor, and moral ideals. Gardens were carefully designed, integrating fountains, statues, and exotic plants. Even pathways guided guests' attention toward prized artworks. Villas functioned as educational spaces, teaching younger generations the aesthetics of influence. Children learned early that beauty carried political and social power. Each artwork conveyed a message, whether subtle or overt. Patrons invested not only in acquisition, but in strategic display. Artworks were arranged to emphasize alliances, victories, and cultural literacy. The circulation of objects created a network of influence extending across Rome. Workshops thrived, producing masterpieces tailored to patrons' ambitions. Artists adapted regional styles to suit Roman tastes, blending Hellenistic, Egyptian, and local motifs. Trade routes supplied marble, bronze, pigments, and rare metals from across the Mediterranean. Luxury objects were transported carefully, often accompanied by trusted agents. The value of an object was as much in its origin as in its craftsmanship. Families competed to display the rarest and most prestigious works. Patrons loaned artworks to allies, reinforcing social and political bonds. Gifts of art could secure loyalty, cement alliances, and influence votes in the Senate. Secret vaults preserved the most valuable pieces from theft or imperial seizure. Trusted slaves guarded these treasures, ensuring continuity across generations. Private collections served as silent negotiations in the theater of power. A guess, admiration or lack thereof, was carefully noted and analyzed. Art became a language of diplomacy, negotiation, and subtle intimidation. Emperors also participated, commissioning works to legitimize rule and celebrate victories. Augustus aligned himself with legendary kings through commissioned statues. Nero used portraits and monumental works to assert dominance and presence. Public and private art together reinforced family prestige and political leverage. Frescoes illustrated virtues, mosaics narrated history, and sculptures embodied ideals. The most influential families controlled both spheres, maximizing their power. Patrons trained children in aesthetic literacy to ensure the next generation could wield influence. Workshops innovated constantly, refining techniques to meet elite expectations. Artists became integral to the network of patronage, their fortunes linked to the success of their patrons. Patronage ensured preservation of traditional skills while promoting artistic evolution. Public monuments projected power outward. Villas projected it inward. Art reinforced hierarchies, guided behavior, and maintained loyalty across the empire. Mosaics depicted Roman victories, gods, and heroes to inspire civic pride. Statues conveyed authority and moral exemplars, shaping cultural ideals. Frescoes created immersive environments where patrons' narratives were enacted daily. The circulation of art created economic and political ecosystems extending from city to province. Governors supplied exotic materials and local artists, ensuring regional integration. Trade networks ensured constant movement of marble, bronze, ivory, and pigments. Each transport was a calculated investment in prestige, influence, and legacy. Families monitored provenance carefully, avoiding fraud and preserving authenticity. The most prized objects were rarely displayed publicly, their power reserved for strategic audiences. Villas became arenas for silent negotiation, where influence was asserted subtly. Patrons cultivated relationships with artists, scholars, and intellectuals. To enhance prestige, historians and poets documented collections, immortalizing families in cultural memory. The integration of literature and visual art reinforced authority and narrative control. Patronage extended to luxury items, silver, jewelry, rare textiles, further consolidating influence. Gifts of art and luxury items strengthened alliances and facilitated political maneuvering. Art functioned as a form of liquid wealth, convertible into favors or loyalty. Families leveraged collections to assert dominance in both public and private spheres. Secrecy and discretion enhanced the value of rare pieces, ensuring long-term advantage. Patrons used art to create social landscapes that guided behavior, reinforced norms, and maintained loyalty. Generational collections provided continuity amidst political upheaval. Heirs inherited not only objects, but networks, reputation, and social capital. Knowledge of provenance, artistry, and symbolism became essential for survival. Art mediated power without force, allowing families to navigate Rome's complex social structures. Workshops adapted to patron preferences, producing innovative combinations of style and technique. Artistic lineage ensured mastery of skill across generations, securing cultural influence. Villas reflected an understanding that visual and spatial strategy were integral to governance. Patrons orchestrated placement, lighting, and sequencing to maximize impact on visitors. Gardens, courtyards, and atriums functioned as immersive narratives of power. Visitors interpreted symbolism in sculptures, frescoes, and mosaics, revealing social hierarchies. Private collections, vaults, and libraries formed a network of influence. Parallel to political structures, art became a silent arbiter of loyalty, persuasion, and reputation. Objects connected distant regions, integrating provinces into Rome's cultural and economic sphere. Trade in materials, luxury items, and artifacts fueled regional economies and patronage networks. Patrons understood that visual dominance could secure political advantage as effectively as armies. Frescoes, mosaics, and sculptures became instruments of diplomacy, education, and persuasion. Families who mastered their display wielded influence subtly yet decisively. Art shaped perception, guided social behavior, and reinforced authority across centuries. Even as political turmoil arose, collections preserved continuity, wealth, and prestige. Heirs inherited strategies, not just objects, ensuring ongoing social dominance. Patrons trained children to interpret and manipulate visual codes, preserving influence. Workshops innovated, producing new techniques while preserving classical traditions. Art became currency, collateral, and a tool of negotiation. Public monuments extended reach outward. Private villas cultivated influence inward. The circulation and placement of objects created social and political networks spanning the empire. Generational patronage preserved both material and cultural wealth. Art became Rome's silent infrastructure of power, invisible yet pervasive. Understanding, controlling, and deploying art equaled mastery of social, political, and economic influence. Through these mechanisms, elite families maintained prominence and shaped the empire's trajectory. Art, in its many forms, had become the backbone of Roman authority, legacy, and by the late empire, Rome's elite had perfected the use of art as both power and legacy. Families understood that wealth alone could not secure influence. Art immortalized their names, values, and achievements for generations. Villas, galleries, and public monuments functioned as enduring testimony to their prominence. Frescoes captured ideals, mosaics narrated history, and sculptures embodied authority. Patrons carefully curated each piece to reflect political, cultural, and familial ambitions. Gardens and courtyards enhanced the immersive experience of status and taste. Even minor objects, bronze figurines, silverware, and jewelry were carefully chosen for symbolism. Portable artworks allowed influence to travel beyond the city, extending networks across provinces. Governors and traders facilitated the movement of rare materials, integrating distant lands into Rome's cultural sphere. Workshops competed to produce innovative works, responding to patrons' strategic needs. Artists became indispensable allies, their fortunes linked to the families they served. Patronage ensured mastery of traditional techniques while encouraging new innovations. Emperors leveraged art to assert legitimacy, celebrate victories, and intimidate rivals. Augustus aligned himself with mythic kings through statues and monuments. Nero's extravagant displays sought to reinforce his presence and dominance. Public and private art worked in tandem to amplify social and political leverage. Frescoes depicted moral ideals and heroic tales, guiding civic behavior. Mosaics illustrated triumphs, wealth, and divine favor, silently influencing perception. Sculptures conveyed virtue, authority, and legacy, leaving no doubt about family prominence. Villas served as microcosms of the empire, blending aesthetics with strategy. Patrons orchestrated spatial arrangement, lighting, and sequencing to maximize visual impact. Atriums showcased ancestry. Courtyards celebrated taste, and galleries displayed power. Gardens integrated nature and art, creating immersive narratives of influence. Visitors interpreted these visual cues, understanding the subtle hierarchy of status. Families trained children to navigate these codes, preserving influence across generations. Workshops produced masterpieces to maintain the prestige of patrons. Trade networks ensured a steady supply of marble, bronze, pigments, and exotic materials. Each artifact represented both aesthetic value and social capital. Patrons loaned, gifted, or displayed art strategically, reinforcing loyalty and alliances. Secret vaults safeguarded the most prized objects from theft, fire, and political upheaval. Slaves and agents acted as custodians, ensuring continuity of collections and networks. Art functioned as liquid wealth, collateral, and a silent negotiator in complex alliances. Literature, poetry, and history amplified visual art, immortalizing patrons. In cultural memory, historians recorded not only deeds, but the collections that reflected influence. Poets praised the beauty and significance of commissioned works, extending patrons' reputations. Public monuments projected power outward, while private collections cultivated influence inward. Frescoes, mosaics, and sculptures created an ecosystem of authority that spanned the empire. Generational patronage preserved both material and cultural wealth. Children inherited not only objects, but networks, reputation, and strategic insight. Art mediated power, guiding loyalty, persuasion, and social interaction, silently yet effectively. Workshops innovated, producing new techniques while safeguarding classical traditions. Patronage became a form of governance, shaping civic life and societal norms. Villas and galleries acted as arenas of diplomacy, negotiation, and cultural education. Patrons mastered subtle influence through strategic display and thoughtful acquisition. Even amid political upheaval, collections ensured continuity of wealth, culture, and prestige. Families leveraged visual dominance to maintain authority without force. Art shaped perception, influenced behavior, and sustained loyalty across centuries. Mosaics narrated victories. Frescoes illustrated ideals. Sculptures embodied virtue. Public and private spheres together reinforced social hierarchies and political leverage. Patrons cultivated relationships with artists, scholars, and intellectuals to enhance legacy. Documentation of collections preserved provenance, authenticity, and historical significance. Trade, diplomacy, and artistry intertwined to create a robust network of influence. Luxury items supplemented artworks, reinforcing wealth and alliances. Art became a versatile tool currency, legacy, and symbol of power. Families understood that aesthetic mastery equaled political mastery. Villas became microcosms of the empire, combining beauty, strategy, and social influence. Public monuments projected achievements outward, consolidating civic recognition. Private collections extended influence inward, guiding elite social interactions. Patrons trained heirs to interpret, manage, and leverage visual codes of authority. Workshops maintained excellence while innovating to meet patrons' ambitions. Art facilitated negotiation, persuasion, and loyalty in subtle but effective ways. Generational stewardship ensured continuity of wealth, taste, and influence. Even as empires faltered, collections maintained social and political continuity. Art became Rome's silent infrastructure, invisible but pervasive in governance and society. Families who mastered patronage wielded enduring influence, shaping history through objects. Visual literacy became essential for survival and prominence in Rome's elite circles. Each acquisition, placement, and display carried strategic weight. Objects connected distant provinces, integrated trade networks, and reinforced cultural dominance. Patrons understood that perception was power, and art was the ultimate instrument. Frescoes, mosaics, and sculptures instructed, impressed, and persuaded simultaneously. Villas acted as stages where influence was performed daily, silently shaping alliances. Gardens, courtyards, and galleries created immersive experiences of authority. Portable artworks allowed influence to traverse the empire efficiently. Secret vaults preserved prized possessions for selective display and negotiation. Art mediated family reputation, loyalty, and political leverage across generations. Patrons mastered a network of artisans, scholars, and intellectuals to consolidate power. Literature amplified the message, immortalizing patrons beyond their lifetimes. Trade, diplomacy, and artistry formed a triad that sustained Roman elite dominance. Even in times of conflict, art preserved wealth, authority, and cultural continuity. Patrons leveraged visual dominance to maintain societal control with subtlety. Workshops produced new techniques, innovating while respecting classical forms. Patrons curated collections strategically, balancing visibility, discretion, and impact. Villas and galleries became instruments of governance, persuasion, and cultural preservation. Art created networks of influence, spanning public and private spheres, city and province. Heirs inherited not only objects, but strategies, reputation, and social capital. Art sustained legacy, authority, and influence long after patrons had passed. Roman families understood that mastery of art equaled mastery of power. Through carefully curated collections, the empire's elite wrote history in marble, mosaic, and fresco. And so, art became the enduring backbone of Rome's wealth, culture, and imperial legacy.